Sirens fall silent over the Gulf for the first time in weeks. But beneath the uneasy calm, fear still hangs in the air. Across Washington, exhausted analysts stare at glowing situation maps, wondering if this fragile Iran ceasefire is a breakthrough or a trap. Families in bases from Virginia to California refresh the news with shaking hands, praying this isn't just a pause before more deployments. The ink on the ceasefire announcement is barely dry, yet social media already erupts with anger, doubt, and deep suspicion. In the Pentagon's dim war rooms, tension lingers as officers ask the same question. How long can this last before something snaps again? For months, the United States and Iran traded threats, drone strikes, and dangerous near misses that pushed the region to the brink. Every miscalculated signal, every intercepted message felt like one more step toward a war no one truly wanted, but everyone feared. When the ceasefire finally came, it wasn't with celebration, but with a cautious, trembling relief. On American aircraft carriers in the Gulf, sailors paused their routines and listened to the announcement with wary, tired eyes. In Iran's cities and towns, people stepped outside under a quiet sky, wondering if they were safe or just living on borrowed time. This ceasefire was born not from trust, but from exhaustion, pressure, and the terrifying cost of what a wider war could bring. Behind the scenes, diplomats who hadn't slept in days pushed legal language, red lines, and verification mechanisms into the agreement. The United States demanded clear limits on missile launches, drone flights, and proxy activity that had fueled so many recent clashes. Iran, under sanctions and internal strain, wanted guarantees of reduced pressure and breathing room from constant military threats. Regional allies from Israel to Gulf states pressed hard, fearful that any weak deal would leave them exposed and vulnerable. Congressional voices in Washington argued on live TV, some calling the ceasefire necessary, others warning it rewarded aggression. Within hours of the announcement, reports surfaced of small arms fire and isolated rocket launches near contested border areas. News anchors spoke carefully, their tone anxious, unsure whether these were isolated incidents or the first cracks in the truce. On secure lines, U.S. commanders asked for confirmation, frustrated by conflicting intelligence and the fog of fast-moving events. A single misinterpreted radar signal, a drone flying too close, could spiral into panic, retaliation, and shattered hopes. Legal teams on both sides scrambled to interpret the ceasefire clauses, arguing over what counted as a violation. International monitors tried to verify each incident, but in the chaos of modern conflict, truth can feel painfully slow to confirm. In Tehran, hardliners warned that the United States could not be trusted, fueling suspicion and resentment on the streets. In Washington, critics insisted that Iran was simply buying time, regrouping and repositioning for the next confrontation. For ordinary people in the U.S., the ceasefire was less about strategy and more about one haunting question. Are our troops truly safer now? Military families watched their loved ones on video calls, sensing the tension in their forced smiles and guarded words. Some American veterans, scarred by past wars in the region, felt a heavy déjà vu that stirred old fear and frustration. Financial markets reacted with cautious optimism, but energy traders still priced in the risk of sudden escalation. Intelligence briefings repeatedly stressed one theme: this ceasefire is not peace, it's only a narrow, fragile pause. U.S. surveillance systems continued to track missile sites, bases, and proxy militias, knowing a single launch could reset everything. On the diplomatic front, envoys pushed for follow-up talks, hoping to broaden the ceasefire into something more durable. But in every meeting room, the shadow of past broken agreements hovered, reminding negotiators how quickly trust can collapse. The timeline of the ceasefire's first 24 hours read like a thriller: promises, accusations, denials, and sudden alarms. Each new report tested whether both sides would show restraint or whether pride and fear would drive them back to the edge. American legal experts debated how far the president could go under existing authorizations if the ceasefire failed overnight. Every option, from limited strikes to full deterrence, carried enormous risks, both abroad and at home. Meanwhile, families in U.S. cities wondered if another Middle East war would mean higher prices, cyber attacks, or new security threats. Commentators on American networks framed the moment as a test of whether diplomacy can still work in a world of instant outrage. Some voices urged patience and realism, saying that every fragile ceasefire is built on imperfect people in impossible situations. Others demanded toughness and zero tolerance, arguing that any violation must be met with swift and decisive response.